And what Doug's brother came to find out was that Pele, all of his life, his professional life, was really big on making sure you get the basics right. So that when you're required to do the spectacular things, you've got the foundations in place on which to be able to do it. Welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. As Doug likes to call me. And I'd love to say with my co-host Doug Holt, but unfortunately Doug has actually left me today. So what I've done is I've gone live in our community amongst our fantastic men, so I can have a little bit of interaction, so I can feel like I'm not just stood here on my own, which I never am because I'm speaking to you guys. But nevertheless, give Doug some stick when he does come back. Who knows, maybe he will, maybe I'll make him record some shows on his own. But then again, I do love doing this. So, as you could tell, as you read rather from the title of the episode, this was an episode that Doug and I planned earlier today after a conversation that he was sharing with me. So, Doug used to be quite the guy at soccer. His brother, in fact, played for the national soccer team, the US national soccer team. And he was that great that he even had Pele, the Brazilian, arguably the best player of all time. Pele even came and coached their team one time. And Doug was telling me this story today, how when Pele came to coach, now to paint the picture, his brother was playing in this team that was, apologies, Doug, if I butcher this, because you're not on with me. But from my recollection, your brother was playing on a team with all, other men. So it was open age, let's say. It was a high level. And in this training session, there was also some teams there that were of a younger age. And Pele was there for the day to basically train and offer some services to all of the different teams. And Doug's brother was stood there, he got there early, as you probably would do. I know I would. So he could see Pele and just see if he could pick up some tips from him. See how he interacted with the 5-year-olds, the teenagers. See if he taught them anything different. And then obviously prepare for his training session so that he could get the most out of the session with Pele as well. Now, when it came time for his session, his team's session with Pele, he was a little bit disappointed because Pele was taking his team, now a team full of men, through the same drills that he was taking the younger teams through. In fact, it was the same drills that he had taken all the teams through during the day. And his brother was like, why are you doing this? I don't understand. Surely, come on, we're grown men. We're stronger. We're faster. We've been playing the game longer. We know what we're doing. Like, why are you getting us to do the same basic drills, going over the same basics that you've shown everybody else? And what Doug's brother came to find out was that Pele, all of his life, his professional life, was really big on making sure you get the basics right. And going over the basics, the short passes, the first touch, getting out of your feet, head up, pass. Getting the basics right every time. So that when you're required to do the spectacular things, you've got the foundations in place on which to be able to do it, because the basics are so imprinted. Now, when he told me this today, I was like, wow, what a great analogy, what a great story. I mean, business, life, entrepreneurs, businessmen. How often do we have a tendency, because we love to grow so quickly, how much do we just want to run and sprint to the next hurdle, the next milestone, and implement the latest strategy and layer on top and on top and on top with new things when sometimes we don't even have the basics in place? we have men that come through the alpha reset and the activation method that are struggling in their marriage, and they think the problem is in the marriage. So they try and go to marriage counseling. They go to couples therapy, and they learn different ways to communicate, which helps a little bit. They're able to communicate better, but it doesn't actually help the problem go away. The disconnect in the marriage, the lack of intimacy, doesn't actually help it to go away. Why is that? Because the man doesn't have the basics in place first. And the basics for the men we work with, at least, are his morning routine. What he does when he wakes up in the morning. How does he start his day? Because we all know, and what we found to be true anyway, the biggest shifts with the men in their life that we work with come from them first getting that first territory of self on lockdown. We give them tools like, the Alpha Rise and Shine routine, the Alpha Decompression routine, to make sure they can start the day strong and they can end the day in the right way so they can switch off at the end of a busy day, shift their energy so they can go and be a different guy, let's say, play a different mode in the relationship on an evening. Because if you've ever been there, it's tough, isn't it? At the end of a working day, and I can see some of the guys in the group here commenting, liking and whatnot. It's tough, right? It can be tough being a business owner. All day you're solving problems. All day people are coming to you, asking questions, relying on you to have the answer. And sometimes by the end of the day, you can either be exhausted and you just don't have anything left for your wife or for your kids or even for yourself sometimes. Or sometimes you're so on fire that you get home and you're still in that same problem-solving mode, and the same urgency that you've been applying to these problems in business, you mistakenly apply it to your wife. And I've done this so many times with Amelia, especially working from home. Walk out of the office, and if I'm not decompressed, she'll be talking to me, and I'll be like hanging on every word, being like, tell me the problem, tell me the problem, tell me the problem, just waiting to solve the problem. And that's not what she wants, right? She doesn't want me to be looking at her through the same lens that I'm looking at the powerful man all day and solving business problems there. She wants me to hold space for her and to listen and connect, and she doesn't want to be solved. So the basics are so key. And for you guys who are joining me in the Facebook group, I'd love to know, what are some of the basics that you have in place? Create a thread here. Maybe some of the other guys can learn from this. And if you're listening to this on the podcast and you want to be involved more in the group, head over to Become a Powerful Man. Search for that group in Facebook and you'll find it. So bringing it back to this conversation, guys, like I said, so the basics that you've got to have in place, in my opinion, based on my own experience, what's worked so well for me, and also for the hundreds of men by now at this point that we've worked with. The first basic is how you wake up on a morning. Not how you wake up, but how you start your day. Often the men that come to us, they start their day very much in reaction. So the alarm will go off, they'll jump out of bed, they'll grab the phone, they'll check emails, look on social media, and instantly what does that do? It triggers you. It puts you into that fight or flight mode that you've been in all day, that you might have been in the previous day, rather, in this problem-solving mode. Seeing emails coming through, seeing notifications going off, looking at maybe Slack channels, looking at Voxer channels, whatever it is you use to communicate with your team or keep in touch with your business. And sometimes they do this while they're sat on the end of the bed before they've actually even got out of bed.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the show, but I wanted to ask you a question. Do you ever feel like something's just missing? Like there's something more out there and you just can't put your finger on it? I totally get it. Go over right now to thepowerfulman.com/freedom to discover the system that other businessmen just like you are using. We've included 10 case studies, 10 men just like you who have found the solution and have found their way on their path. And we want to share that with you. Go over to thepowerfulman.com/freedom right away. Now let's get back to the show.
And then they get out of bed, go straight downstairs and go to the coffee machine and make themselves a cup of coffee, which what then happens? Immediately, it's that same adrenaline rush and that same, fight or flight response that's been accelerated. And, they get changed, they get a shower, and boom, off to work. Or the kids come down, they sort the kids out, and then boom, off to work. Either way, usually the men don't have any ritual or routine in place in order to really create the day in the way that they need to start it, in order to have the best productivity in the day and actually lead the day instead of the day leading them. So the flip side of that, if we're talking about basics and making sure you've got the basics in place, which, if it works for Pele and Pele continues to practice the basics, even later on when you can say it, Tim, late on him, I still can't say it, late on in his career, then what does that say for us? Someone that's a world-class performer, why is it that we can sometimes tell ourselves that we're too busy to get the basics in place? Do you think someone like Pele, now I don't know the answer to this, of course, but I know my opinion, but do you think someone like Pele wakes up on a morning, a world-class performer, first thing he does is check his social media or check his emails or check his messages from his agent or check his messages from his manager or check whatever tool that people communicate with him through, and then go downstairs and make a cup of coffee and be on edge straight away? Or do you think world-class performers start their day intentionally and get up, wake up slowly, go downstairs, maybe get some sunlight, which can be sometimes hard in the UK at certain times of year, mobilize their body, hydrate with some water instead of coffee, maybe take 10 minutes to meditate, maybe take 5 minutes to stretch, maybe get out their journal and make a note. I know I don't know a lot of world-class performers that do that, but I know a lot of men who perform at some high levels in business, guys that have been featured on the cover of Wired magazine and guys that are state representatives, guys who we've helped to achieve these things. And the biggest shifts for them happen when they get the basics in place, because what happens then, when you get the basics in place and you take that leadership role of your own life, it then has a domino effect on how you lead your day, right? You either start your day in reaction, on the back foot, reacting to everything that goes on, and you're constantly reacting as things come up, or you start the day on the front foot, creating the type of morning that you want to have, which is a basic, and build on that as the day goes on, and enforce boundaries and say no when it's the right thing to say no to, instead of other tasks bleeding into your day, you end up firefighting. And the other real basic here is your evening routine at the end of the day, making sure that you've got a routine in place that you can turn to and go through that is going to put you in the right place for when you get home. You want to enjoy the rest of the day or the rest of the evening, whatever time you finish, with your wife and kids. And the basics, what's that saying about basics? Maybe one of you guys in the group can remind me. There's a saying about basics. Sometimes the basics are so basic that people don't do them. Maybe I've just made that up completely. There's a saying that goes something like that. Often the most simplest things are the things that often go so overlooked. Doug's brother, the last thing he thought Pele was going to teach him was to continually go over passing and first touch and head up before moving on to anything else. But, you cannot add floors to a building with crumbling foundations, right? If you do, what happens? Collapses. But we've seen it time and time again where men will grow their business and their business will get to a point where it's producing so much chaos that it's wreaking havoc on other areas of their life. And that's because it's been built on shaky foundations. The basics aren't in place. Now, whatever the basics are for you, maybe the basics are how you delegate, how you operate in your business, how you lead the business, how you communicate with your team, how you manage finances, it's up to you to find out what the basics are. But for sure, starting your day on the right foot by making sure you're creating a morning routine that really works for you. It doesn't have to be some long, lasting for hours routine. Just find something that works for you and start there and let it be basic and build on it. And watch what happens the rest of your day as you take control of those first few moments. I'd love to hear from you what happens. So guys, if you want to find out more about the Alpha Rise and Shine routine or any of the other tools and techniques that we give our men to help them to reconnect with their wife and have more intimacy whilst also being successful professionally, then head over to thealphareset.com. Have a look there. Maybe that's something that'll take your fancy, and I'd love to see you at Alpha Reset as well if you're on that page. So guys, thank you for joining me on this episode. I've been in complete flow. I've not really known how long I've gone on for, but my invitation to you is, like I say, for you to take some time and identify what are the basics that you ought to be doing in your life, personal or professional, that would significantly move the needle, because it'd give you a firm foundation on which to build. What are the basics that you may be overlooking or maybe that you've stopped doing? What are the basics? If you're unsure, reach out to people who have been there. Get in the Facebook group, ask questions. We can all chip in and we can all ask input on and so on. So guys, again, thank you for joining me on this episode. Apologies if I've ruined the show and you've been turning up every week just to get a daily dose of Doug or a weekly dose of Doug. He's not here today. Hopefully I've done a good enough job of stepping in. And until next time, have a terrific day, guys. I'll catch you again soon.